Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. The noble Snow Leopard clan, known for their freezing abilities, houses the esteemed Nesan family. Among them, the eldest daughter, Lena, is blessed with exceptional talents. Her overwhelming power and skill make her the ideal heir, and everyone holds high expectations for her to lead the family. She is regarded as the perfect successor. If only she hadn't fallen in love with Heartless, the heir of the Asterian family, a clan that has been hostile to the Nesans for thousands of years. Despite her family's opposition, Lena chooses to follow her love for Heartless. However, this choice leads to a devastating outcome. She loses her life while giving birth to their child. Later, a maid approaches the Nesan family's patriarch, Zender Nesan, with Lena's child, a frail hybrid born with great difficulty and unable to manifest any abilities. Years pass and the child, named Thiel, turns 7. By then, it becomes apparent that abilities usually manifest within the first few years of life. Zender, bitter and ashamed, declares that she will never develop powers and deems her a useless insect. "This is giving me a headache. If Thiel doesn't kill Zender, I'm coming in with my pookies, ready to bonk him into next week." Enraged and humiliated, Zender confines his granddaughter to the attic, labeling her as the family's shame. From then on, the abuse and neglect inflicted by Zender and the rest of the family are relentless, making it nearly impossible for the child to survive. Nevertheless, enduring the harshest conditions with her fragile body, the young girl barely clings to life. One day, Zender catches Thiel stealing bread meant to be discarded. Furious, he strikes her with the bread, calling her a filthy insect. Thiel apologizes, explaining that she was hungry, but her words only fuel his anger. He grabs her, enraged that she dared talk back, and drags her to the terrace. Opening the gate, Zender sneers, claiming her life has been so comfortable that she has forgotten her place. He forces her onto the railing and slams the door shut, locking her outside in the heavy snow. Thiel, shivering and desperate, bangs on the door, pleading with her grandfather to let her in. She apologizes repeatedly, but her cries go unanswered. Suddenly, a young woman enters the room, her sharp gaze fixed on Thiel as she mocks she is still here. It is Cornelia, the current heir to the Nesan family. Thiel calls out to her aunt, but Cornelia's response is cold. She scolds Thiel, questioning how she dares to address her as aunt, as if forgetting her place. Thiel falls silent, speechless at the cruelty. Cornelia turns to Zender and remarks that he was supposed to accompany Loan, her daughter, for dress fittings. She adds that she has been waiting eagerly for him. Zender dismisses her concerns, blaming the delay on the damned hybrid, but promises to leave soon and asks Cornelia to inform Loan. Loan suddenly bursts into the room. She is Cornelia's daughter and Thiel's cousin, calling for her grandfather. Her grandfather points that he was just about to come to her. Loan rushes to her grandfather, remarking he didn't come, so she is here to escort him herself. Zender picks her up and praises her as a good child. He promises they will leave immediately. Watching this, Thiel's heart aches. She calls out to Cornelia again, but quickly corrects herself, addressing her as Lady Cornelia. Desperate, Thiel begs Cornelia to save her, explaining that it is unbearably cold outside. Cornelia mocks her, laughing at the absurdity of a snow leopard feeling cold. Narrowing her eyes, Cornelia sneers. Is it because she is a hybrid, mixed with a black leopard? Her disdain is evident as she slams the door shut, remarking that Thiel reminds her of Lena, and that disgusts her. Left alone in the freezing cold, Thiel collapses on the floor. She curls up, trembling as the memories of her family's cruelty flood her mind. She wonders if things would have been different if her mother were alive, or if there is a place where she truly belongs. She was able to hear laughter and wanted to go to a place where she could experience love, warmth, and the embrace of a family. This was what she longed for and wanted to feel it even for once. Suddenly, something jolts her awake, and she finds herself in the attic. Confused, Thiel looks around, questioning how she got there. Moments ago, she had been on the balcony. A sharp pain in her body confirms a fresh wound, solidifying that it wasn't just a dream. As she gazes into a nearby mirror, she notices a scar on her forehead from when Loan pushed her down the stairs a month ago. To her, it feels as though it just happened yesterday. Puzzled, Thiel wonders if she has somehow gone back in time. But how? Just then, a golden flash emanates from her hands. Startled, she stares at them, dismissing the glow as a hallucination. She decides it's not the time to dwell on it. If she truly has returned to the past, she must escape before Zender tortures her again. However, the grim reality sets in. She has nowhere to go. Wandering outside would mean freezing to death. She wishes desperately for someone to help her. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes widen as she notices gold in her golden eyes. Golden eyes, the mark of the Black Leopard clan, the Asterian family. The realization strikes her. If she goes to her father's clan, perhaps they might accept her. Thiel hears a voice from the outside and wonders what it could be. It is really noisy. She hears someone saying to send someone to the guest room and another asking what is needed for the banquet. Suddenly, Thiel remembers the time when Lowen became a candidate for Crown Princess. To be precise, all the girls around the Crown Prince's age had become candidates for the position of Crown Princess. That's why the palace had sent the Emperor's direct subordinate to observe Lowen, one of the candidates. The Nesan family had been busy preparing to welcome the guests for a while. Thiel believes it is the perfect timing. Everyone will be too busy paying attention to Lowen to come near the attic. The same goes for her grandfather and the maid. Thiel ponders that while the palace guests are here, she can escape to Asterian. Luckily, Thiel still has some bread left. She decides to hide it in her clothes and take it with her. Suddenly, a mouse comes near her bread. She screams, "No," and quickly takes the bread, stating that she needs it more. She steps back and, in her panic, transforms into a cat, scaring the mouse away. The mouse scurries off and Thiel wraps herself tightly in a blanket. She knows she must endure this situation for a while. Until the guests arrive, she decides to conserve her strength. However, a worry nags at her. What if, just as her grandfather said, her father truly hates her? She remembers her grandfather telling her that if the head of the Black Leopard family sees her, they will kill her immediately, as that family despises her terribly. Thiel ponders if this is true. She thinks about how her mother died and how she, a hybrid born neither this nor that, seems to have no place in the world. She knows that if she cannot find acceptance in Asterian, there is no place for her. She hides her face in her hands, wondering if promising to stay out of sight would make them accept her. She plans to eat very little and live as if she doesn't exist, thinking she can survive on just a piece of bread every 2 days. All her pain and their countless excuses weigh on her. 2 days later, Thiel finally opens the attic door. It seems everyone is asleep. Since everyone had been busy welcoming the palace guests during the day, they won't wake up easily. Thiel decides her first stop will be her grandfather's office to take something valuable. She plans to use it to ask the coachman to take her to the Asterian family. When she reaches the office, she finds, as expected, that the door is unlocked. Since Lowen often comes and goes, Zender does not bother locking it. Thiel carefully opens a drawer and finds some coins that should easily cover the carriage fare. As she is about to close the drawer, her attention is caught by a necklace. She picks it up and opens it, revealing a portrait of her mother, the one Zender often looks at. Seeing her mother's face makes Thiel sad. She decides to take the necklace with her too. Since she doesn't plan to return, she wants to remember her mother's face. Luckily, it seems like she hasn't woken anyone up yet. All she needs to do now is get outside. Suddenly, someone calls out, "Miss Lowen." Lowen's nanny, Jera, mistakes her for Lowen and scolds her for wandering around so late at night. As Jera approaches, she realizes it is not Lowen and yells at Thiel, demanding to know why she is here and ordering her to return to her room. Thiel panics and starts running. Jera shouts at her to come back, but Thiel is fast, especially for someone so small. "Run, Kili, run. You're doing amazing, baby. Good job." Thiel's heart races as she wonders where she should go. It seems like people have noticed her, and now everyone is running after her. She sprints outside, but even the butlers are chasing her. In desperation, she enters the annex where the palace guests are staying. The staff hesitate, knowing that making a scene here could cause problems. They decide to inform the head of the family instead. Meanwhile, Thiel runs through the unfamiliar annex, her breath coming in sharp bursts. She doesn't know the layout, and all the doors she tries seem to be locked. Fear grips her as she whispers desperate pleads for someone to help her. Suddenly, a figure steps out from the shadows behind her and grabs her arm, causing her to stumble and fall to the ground. She looks up to see a boy bent over her. His expression sharpens as he demands who she is to dare enter his quarters at this hour. Thiel stutters as the boy questions her. Sobbing, she pleads with him to save her. The boy ponders who she could be, as there should only be one girl in the Nesan family. Her shabby appearance and golden eyes, rather than blue, confirm she isn't Lowen. Firmly, the boy tells her to stop crying and demands she explain who she is. If she refuses, he threatens to throw her out immediately. Reluctantly, Thiel replies that she is Thiel Nesan, a snow leopard, and that she needs to escape. Suddenly, they hear approaching footsteps, making the boy wonder who could be coming now. He questions whether she was being chased. He orders her to follow him and asks if she can transform into her beast form. Inside his room, the boy quickly instructs Thiel to hide under the bed. She hurriedly obeys but leaves her tail sticking out. Irritated by her clumsiness, the boy tucks her tail under the bed as well. Moments later, a man enters the room, apologizing for his rudeness. The man is Cedric, the Emperor's aide. The boy questions why Cedric has come so late. Cedric explains that a maid has run away from the mansion. He adds that she wasn't in her right mind. They were taking care of her, but she escaped, and staff saw her running into the guest house. The boy considers the situation. A white-furred snow leopard, a clear symbol of her identity, had been out in the open, yet they were referring to her as a servant. Calmly, he tells Cedric he has never seen her before. Sitting on the bed, he commands Cedric let them search the area if needed but to exclude his room and Cedric's. Cedric complies, promising to relay the order and wishing the boy a good night. As he leaves, the boy reflects on his current situation. He's undercover and can't reveal his true identity. But now he's entangled in this mess, all because the Emperor insisted he personally verify the bride candidates. After ensuring Cedric has gone, the boy prompts Thiel to come out from under the bed. She hesitantly emerges, still in her beast form. The boy questions why she's running and why they're calling her a servant. Thiel studies him carefully, sensing his high status. She wonders if someone this remarkable would truly help her. Dismissing the thought, she decides it doesn't matter. Anyone will do right now. Transforming back into her human form, Thiel explains that she has been locked away since birth. Her grandfather considers her a disgrace to the family. She wasn't born with any special abilities, and her appearance isn't extraordinary either. The boy concludes that she used the chaos in the mansion caused by the palace guests to escape. Thiel admits this is true. The boy then asks what she plans to do once she leaves the mansion. Thiel replies that she has some money and plans to take a carriage to the Asterian family. Confused, the boy asks why she would go there if she's a snow leopard. Thiel explains that her father is a snow leopard. Hearing this, the boy looks at her golden eyes again and realizes why they seem familiar. Running a hand through his hair, he comments that he understands what she's trying to do, but warns her that with so little money, she won't even make it out of Nesan territory. Thiel's heart sinks as she realizes he's right. She thought her savings would be enough. She asks in despair, what should she do when she doesn't even have more money? The boy surprises her by offering to take her to Asterian himself. Thiel stares at him in disbelief, questions if he is being serious. He confirms it, prompting her to thank him repeatedly, promising to repay him soon. He sighs and assures her it isn't necessary. Thiel, however, is convinced that he is her savior. She finally asks for his name, wondering how she should address him. He introduces himself as Iandros Krashen, adding that she can call him Ian. Lost in her thoughts about his name, she barely notices when Ian tells her to rest. He warns her that if she doesn't wake up tomorrow, he won't take her with him. Startled, Thiel asks what would happen if someone saw her while she's sleeping. Ian reassures her that no one will enter his room. When she still hesitates, Ian raises his hand midair, creating a hole with his powers. Thiel stares in awe, finding it mesmerizing, like a white void. Ian explains that it's his special ability, a dimensional space that only he can open and close. He urges her to transform into her snow leopard form and go inside. Thiel hesitates, but Ian reassures her. As long as he is alive, she won't get lost in there. What if you die? We don't want our little protagonist to be stuck wandering in your dimension. Do you even have Wi-Fi there? Knowing she has no better option, she transforms and enters the void. Ian remarks that he'll retrieve her as soon as it's safe. Inside, Thiel marvels at her surroundings. The place looks completely ruined, almost like an alternate world. She reaches out to touch a stuffed toy, but it vanishes on contact, startling her. Determined not to cause more damage, Thiel decides to be cautious. Her eyes land on a cushion that seems new, sparkling with an unexplainable aura. Carefully, she pokes it, relieved when it doesn't disappear. Excited, she climbs onto it. The cushion is incredibly soft, and she feels a warmth she hasn't known before. Curled up on the cushion, Thiel thinks wistfully of her father. She wishes he could be as gentle and kind as Ian. If her father doesn't treat her right, I'm personally showing up to make that man bald, shiny as a bowling ball. Or the next morning, Zender apologizes to Cedric for causing a disturbance the previous night. He questions whether Cedric has a good impression of Nesan or if they were comfortable. However, Cedric responds that thanks to their hospitality, they rested well and the dinner was excellent too. Zender notices there is no mention of Lowen, not even a polite inquiry, and his worry deepens. He knows things went awry because of the rampage, and he feels frustrated that of all times, she chose now to act up when she had been as quiet as a mouse all this time. Shamelessly, Zender asks if they would like to meet Lowen once more before they leave. Cedric loudly sets his tea on the table and coldly replies, no. He stands up, stating that it's a long journey and they must get going now. Cedric then adds that until they meet again, if Zender visits the capital, he will host him. Zender rises, trying to say something, but Lowen suddenly comes into the room, calling out to her grandfather. Zender tells her not to come in yet, but she questions if the guests are leaving. Beaming, Zender asks Lowen if the guests have said they will look favorably upon her. Cedric bluntly responds, saying it was nice meeting her and offering a formal, "May the blessing occasion be with you." The rejection is smooth and clear. Zender grits his teeth, understanding that this means they don't intend to consider Lowen as a candidate at all. Lowen, oblivious, questions Cedric, asking if they will meet again or when he will visit the mansion next. Zender tries to stop her, but Lowen insists she wants to see the capital too and asks if she can follow them. Ayan, clearly annoyed, watches the exchange in silence. Cedric, avoiding her questions, states firmly that they will be going now. Zender is seething. He blames the failure of this important meeting, which took months to prepare, on the half-breed rampage that ruined everything. He promises to himself that once he catches Thiel, he won't let her go this time. At the carriage, they bless the house of Nesan. Zender offers his wishes, but Ayan shuts the carriage door in his face, leaving Zender to fume about how insolent the servant is. "You old hag, does he really look like a servant to you, or is your eyesight just as bad as your judgment?" Ayan remarks on Zender's long tongue, and Cedric warns Ayan to mind how he speaks to the head of the Nesan family. Ayan sighs, stating that this is precisely why he dislikes child marriages. Cedric, calling Ayan Your Highness, hints at the gravity of the situation. Ayan replies he is aware it's crucial for him to find a mate and perform the marking as soon as possible. His extraordinarily large and unstable power is too much for his body to handle, and to prevent a future rampage, the power must be shared with a mate through the marking. However, families aiming to gain power through producing the crown princess are closely watching the situation, exhausting Ayan even further. Cedric observes that Zender appeared uneasy about something and wonders if it's related to the incident at dawn. This thought makes Ayan recall Thiel. He opens his white dimension hole and pulls Thiel out, shocking Cedric, who questions the situation. Cedric takes off his glasses, wipes them, and wonders if he is dreaming. Meanwhile, Ayan pats Thiel and asks if she is all right or scared. Ayan then commands Cedric that they will head to the Asterian family next. Cedric, curious, asks what business they have there, and Ayan explains they need to send the child to Asterian. Ayan encourages Thiel to explain herself to Cedric. Transforming back into her human form, Thiel introduces herself as Thiel Nesan, and adds that she is going to Asterian to meet her father. Cedric, confused, asks about her father. Ayan directs Cedric to look at Thiel's eyes. Noticing her golden eyes, Cedric realizes the truth. He recalls the Black Panther and Snow Leopard lineage, Lena and Karthus, who had defied family opposition to build a harmonious family. They had twin sons, but while pregnant with her third child, Lena disappeared. Soon after, the Nesans reported Lena's death, and Asterian had to hold a funeral without Lena's body. Unaware of the fate of her third child, Cedric panics, realizing Thiel may be the child thought to have died. Ayan orders the carriage to run as fast as possible, stating there are stops they need to make before arriving at Asterian Castle 3 days later. Upon arrival, the Asterian family's butler, Pardon, greets them and wishes the blessing of Krajan upon Yan. The butler bows, recognizing Ayan as the crown prince. Ayan immediately requests to see the head of the Asterian family, but Pardon informs him the master is currently out and asks if it's an urgent matter. Ayan confirms it is and insists on seeing him right away. Cedric helps Thiel out of the carriage, and Pardon is astonished to see her with them. Ayan instructs Pardon to inform the master they believe they have found the youngest daughter of the Asterian family. Thiel enters the mansion. It is massive, far larger than she ever imagined, twice the size of Nesan even. She marvels at its grandeur but feels uneasy. Living in a place like this feels unimaginable. Her father must be terrifying, she thinks, and worries whether she'll even be able to meet his eyes. Cedric reassures her, saying they will give her a grand welcome here in Asterian. Ayan agrees, adding that it's a shame they couldn't prepare more for her first visit. Ayan's words feel kind, but Thiel cannot help but think that the princess-like dress she wears is far too extravagant for her. She is certain her father will hate her, yet the magnificent carriage she rode, the beautiful clothes, and the warmth she felt along the way, all these things are new to her, things she's never experienced before. It feels wonderful, and she wonders if she and Ian will ever meet again after today. When they reach the lounge, Ian encourages Thiel to sit. She insists she is fine standing, but Ian picks her up and sets her down firmly, pointing out that everyone else is sitting, so it would look strange if she were the only one standing. "My love, do you really think she likes standing? She's just not used to this kindness. No, I'm not crying, you err." As she settles, a maid enters with a trolley laden with desserts. Thiel's eyes light up with amusement. She had refused to eat anything during the journey, and had only nibbled on the bread she had brought from Nesan. Ian urges her to eat, assuring her that everything here is for her, but Thiel hesitates, worried that accepting such hospitality would make her seem shameless. Ian doesn't wait for her to decide. He picks up some food and shoves it into her mouth. Thiel takes a bite and becomes visibly excited. Ian laughs, asking if it's really that good. She nods eagerly, saying it's delicious. Suddenly, Heartless enters the lounge. Cedric is the first to greet him, and Thiel freezes. She knows immediately that this is her father. Anxiety grips her. What should she do? Should she greet him first? Her grandfather's words echo in her mind. He had called her father a fool who didn't know his place, a man without limits, utterly arrogant. Worse, he had said that because she shares his blood, she must be just as pathetic as he is. Her grandfather's warning rings clear. If her father ever saw her, he would kill her. A shiver runs down her spine. Heartless walks toward her, about to say something, but stops. Thiel assumes he is angry. She debates whether she should beg for her life, but then recalls the kindness Ian and Cedric showed her. She cannot give up. She must do something. After a moment of silence, Thiel summons her courage. She tells Heartless that her mother's name is Lena, and presents a necklace she stole from her grandfather's drawer. Heartless takes it, recognizing it as Lena's. Thiel then begs him to let her stay. She promises she will eat little, sleep in the barn or the warehouse, and live as though she doesn't exist. Anything as long as she can stay. The words warehouse and barn make Heartless's eyes widen with anger. He wonders what kind of life they must have subjected this young child to. When he reaches for her, Thiel flinches instinctively, a clear trauma response. Heartless halts, concerned. Finally, he speaks, confirming her name. Thiel. He then tells her she will have to wait, as he needs to discuss something with his guests. Turning to the maid, he orders her to take Thiel to the guest room, give her a warm blanket, and ensure she has a chance to rest. The maid bows and happily asks Thiel to follow her. Before leaving, Thiel glances back at her father, who stands silently, watching her. In the guest room, Thiel feels a deep sadness. Heartless hadn't said she could stay. She worries about what to do next. With no money, she can't take the carriage back, and she doesn't think she can survive outside. Looking at the dress she wears, she contemplates selling it. But it was the first gift she had received from Ian, and the thought of parting with it pains her. The maid returns, bringing snacks, but grows concerned when she sees Thiel crying. The second maid enters, questioning if something is wrong and suggesting they take Thiel back to her father. Thiel dismisses the idea. The maid lovingly urges Thiel to eat, saying food will give her strength while the guests are still talking. She encourages her to eat slowly and comfortably. Thiel looks at the food, thinking about how, if she is kicked out of the mansion, she won't know when she will get warm food again. Deciding she should at least fill her stomach for the next 2 days, she begins eating as much as she can. Meanwhile, Ian explains to Heartless that Thiel had been running away and was in a terrible state. She was terrified but said she wanted to find her father, a member of the Asterian family. Heartless listens and ponders that instead of blaming him for not being able to find her and seeing her in such a frightened state, he wonders how she managed to survive in Nesan. Cedric adds that Thiel kept glancing nervously during the carriage ride and refused the meal they prepared. Ian mentions noticing wounds on her body and says the people of Nesan referred to her as a mad maid. What might have happened to Thiel? Heartless has an idea about that. The two families of the leopard tribe, Nesan's snow leopards and Asterian's black leopards, have a long history. The tribe's leader is always the one with the strongest abilities. For 6 generations, Asterian has held that title, while Nesan has fallen into decline, now a mere facade of its former glory. Lena, born into the Nesan family, had been their only hope due to her remarkable abilities, surpassing even Asterian. However, she rejected the position of head of the family and chose to marry Karthus instead. Currently, Cornelia, Neshchen's next in line, lacks the qualities needed to lead. It is clear that the next leader will come from Asterian. To prevent this, Nesan likely hid Lena's child and to raise in the hope that she might be able to inherit her mother's abilities using that poor child in the adult's political struggles. The maid suddenly bursts into the room, interrupting the conversation. States that the young lady the guest brought. Karthus turns to her, worried if there's something wrong with the child. Karthus bursts into the guest room, the food scattered everywhere. Thiel cries in the maid's arms, begging repeatedly, saying she is wrong, sorry, and has made a mistake, before collapsing fully into the maid's embrace. Karthus commands the maids to change her into comfortable clothes, to get her to rest, and call the physician immediately. The maids carry Thiel away, and as her boots brush against Karthus's hand, he pauses, standing still as he surveys the chaos in the room. He looks at the mess, unsure of what has just happened. He questions the maid in the room, demanding to know what transpired. The maid explains that Thiel ate a snack but vomited shortly after, as though her stomach couldn't handle the sudden intake of food. She adds that even while resting in the guest room, Thiel kept looking around nervously, completely on edge. The maid wonders aloud what kind of experience Thiel must have gone through to behave like this. Karthus turns to Cade and demands to know Thiel's condition. Cade, the Asterian family physician, informs him that Thiel is utterly malnourished and that her growth rate is far behind other children her age. Cade explains that young beast folk often fall into sudden sleep if they are sleep-deprived and reassures Karthus that her current sleeping state is nothing to worry about. Karthus touches the blanket draped over her, feeling a sense of relief. He sits in the chair beside her and reflects, regretting that he still hasn't told her she can stay here, that she can have whatever she needs, and that there is nothing to fear. This is her home now. He wishes he had told her that earlier. Cedric questions Karthus about whether he will conduct a paternity test, citing formalities. Karthus responds that he will, as they need documents proving paternity to officially register the child in the Asterian family records. Taking a small piece of Thiel's hair, he hands it to Cade and instructs him to run the test through the temple, noting that the temple already has his DNA sample. Cade nods and complies. Karthus reflects on how he had always believed he would find his child one day, which is why he entrusted the temple with his DNA in advance. Now he feels grateful that he never gave up hope. Karthus decides to leave where they might wake Thiel. Cedric turns to Ian, suggesting they also leave for the palace since their schedule is already delayed. Ian reluctantly agrees, expressing regret that he couldn't say goodbye to Thiel but vowing to see her next time. Later, a man calls out to Karthus, demanding to know where the child is. It is Alpheus Evol, the Duke of Asterian, the leader of the Leopard clan, the man who always carries himself with dignity, and the unshakable pillar of the empire. Alpheus, known for his composed demeanor, now stands before Karthus, visibly shaken and disheveled. Pardon reminds Alpheus of his dinner appointment with the emperor, but Alpheus brushes it off, declaring that his granddaughter, whom he thought was dead, has returned. Alpheus rushes to Karthus, demanding to know where Thiel is and whether Karthus is certain she is Lena's child. Karthus informs him that a paternity test has been requested at the temple but confirms his certainty, pointing out that Thiel is a snow leopard with the golden eyes of the Black Panther, hidden away in Nesan. Alpheus insists on seeing the child immediately, but Karthus tells him she is currently sleeping in the room Olivier used to stay in. He advises Alpheus to look at her quietly before leaving. Alpheus promises to do so. Alpheus approaches the sleeping Thiel and gazes at her tenderly. "Little one," he murmurs, his love for her evident on his face. He thinks about how he didn't even know she existed until now, and how grateful he is to finally see her. When Alpheus steps out, he turns to Karthus, demanding to know what happened and why Nesan take that child and hid the child from them. Karthus explains that Nesan likely didn't want to give her up because she is Lena's child. He can tell that she had a hard time there. He then recounts the entire story of how the prince found her and brought her back to them. Meanwhile, Thiel dreams of people calling her worthless, a shame to Nesan, mocking her for not manifesting powers and for being born by devouring her mother. She tries to escape these voices in her dream, pleading that she was wrong and begging them not to hate her. As a hand reaches out to grab her, she wakes up abruptly, sweating and trembling. Thiel blinks at the unfamiliar ceiling, slowly recalling that she is an Asterian. She marvels at how, despite her mistake, she was allowed to sleep in such a comfortable bed. She wonders if she won't be thrown out after all. Suddenly, voices drift to her ears. Curious and uneasy, she leaps from the bed and follows the sounds. As she gets closer, she hears someone angrily declare that the brat needs to be killed right now. The word killed freezes her in place. Shock washes over her as she realizes her grandfather was right. The maids didn't know who she truly was, which is why they were kind to her. But the family must hate her. Panic sets in. She knows if she doesn't escape, she will die. That night, Thiel shifts into her beast form and waits until the household falls quiet. Deciding that everyone is asleep, she sneaks out and runs, determined not to face death again. Meanwhile, Karthus is alerted that Thiel is missing. A guard informs him that they lost sight of her during a shift change. The household is in disarray as soldiers are mobilized to search for her. Karthus activates his firepower and orders everyone to be extremely careful so as not to scare the child. He summons Salamander and instructs the creature to find Thiel, describing her as a child snow leopard with white hair and golden eyes. Clenching his fists, Karthus grits his teeth in frustration. Where could she have gone? He mutters, furious at himself for failing to do anything earlier. He silently vows to speak to her properly when they find her. Salamander finds the child in the basement and informs Karthus that she is there, crying, a white-haired child curled up and sobbing. Karthus takes a lamp and goes down into the basement. In the corner, Thiel is huddled, muttering to herself, begging for forgiveness and pleading to her grandfather not to kill her. She repeatedly says she will return to Nesan, that he was right, and begs someone to save her. Karthus calls out to her gently, urging her to come to him, but she continues muttering, apologizing that she doesn't even have a special ability. Karthus reassures her, telling her that she doesn't need to have a special hobby or ability. As long as she is with him, that's all he needs. He encourages her again to come to him. Thiel finally turns to look at him, her face stricken with fear, and covers her ears. She begs, saying she's sorry and will listen well from now on. Karthus calls out to her once more. Suddenly, she emits a flash of golden energy, holding her hands up and pleads, even something like this appears, so please, still don't kill me. Karthus is stunned as he sees the golden energy radiating from her. Before he can say anything, Thiel collapses again. He rushes to her side, calling her. Later, back in her room, Thiel slowly opens her eyes. Karthus is sitting beside her, his expression relieved and happy to see her awake. Thiel is shocked to find her father by her side, something she never expected, considering he hates her. Confused, she wonders if she dreamed his warm words. Could it have been a dream or a memory? She vaguely recalls hearing a voice urging her to come here. Karthus notices she's awake and apologizes for waking her. He explains that it's better to get things sorted quickly so she can rest properly. He then introduces Cade, the Asterian family physician who will be looking after her health. Cade greets her warmly, telling her she can call him Cade. Still bewildered, Thiel questions why a physician is looking after her. She knows physicians only treat those who have received the family name, even recalling how no one treated her injured head before, not even offering a cloth to clean the wound. She speaks aloud, asking if it's okay for Cade to treat her since she hasn't been given the family name. Karthus interrupts, asking her what color her eyes are. She answers, golden. Karthus explains that her golden eyes are proof she is his daughter and a member of the Asterian family. He assures her that as long as she has those eyes, there's nothing she isn't allowed to do in the mansion. Thiel hesitantly asks if this means she can stay in the mansion. Karthus confirms, saying she no longer needs to eat little portions, act as though she owns nothing, or sleep in the warehouse. He encourages her to live happily and peacefully there. Overwhelmed, Thiel begins to cry, thanking him. Karthus, visibly satisfied, tells Cade to finish up the treatment quickly, as he must be tired. Cade complies, beginning his work. Afterward, Thiel eats her food, trying to calm her nerves. She vividly remembers hearing a voice like her grandfather's, urging someone to kill her. Though it frightens her, she clings to Karthus' assurance that it's okay for her to stay. A maid appears, bringing out pudding, insisting that Thiel eat it after her soup. She explains that it's the chef's special pudding, made after a frenzy in the kitchen to prepare something comforting for Thiel. When Thiel takes a bite, she lights up with joy, exclaiming she's never tasted anything so good. The maid is glad she likes it. Hesitantly, Thiel asks the maid if it's really okay for her to stay in the mansion. The maid reassures her, saying she can eat plenty of delicious food, do the things she enjoys, and live a happy life. Thiel nervously asks if she can stay with the maid too. She's grown attached to the warm, kind woman and doesn't want to lose her. The maid, deeply moved, introduces herself as Rhea and promises to take care of Thiel until a personal maid is officially assigned. Thiel immediately becomes worried, asking if they'll have to part once that happens. Rhea smiles and reveals it's a secret, but she has already applied to be Thiel's personal maid. Thiel is thrilled. Rhea reassures her that from now on, she will always be by her side. Hearing this, Thiel can't help but feel truly happy for the first time. Rhea informs her that her room will soon be ready. The staff is decorating it beautifully for her. Thiel, amazed, thinks that the room she's currently in already feels incredibly spacious and beautiful. She wonders if she's really going to receive this level of treatment. The scene shifts to Karthus in a discussion with Alpheus. Alpheus accuses Karthus of not letting him see Thiel's face, pointing out how worried he is. Karthus counters that Alpheus has already seen her face, but Alpheus throws a tantrum, pointing out that Karthus went to get her from the basement and had a conversation with her, which he did not get to have. Setting aside Alpheus's complaints, Karthus changes the subject to something important. Alpheus, curious, asks if it concerns Thiel. Karthus confirms and reveals that Thiel has manifested a special ability. Alpheus is taken aback, questioning how it's possible for an ability to manifest this late. Karthus agrees it's unusual, but reveals something even more shocking. Thiel's ability is neither the snow leopard's ice-powered nor the black leopard's flame. Her power is the power of light. Chap 8 Alpheus is shocked to learn that Thiel possesses the power of light. He questions Karthus, asking if he is certain and if he saw it with his own eyes. Karthus confirms, stating that he witnessed it himself. Alpheus, trying to grasp the enormity of the revelation, begins to piece it together. If Thiel truly has the power of light, then the legend long passed down in the Empire might not be just a myth. He recalls the ancient legend. The one who possesses the power of light, a child blessed by the goddess Lisette, will bring morning to a land where morning never came, driving away darkness and maintaining the balance between light and shadow. Even though the events of this legend are so old that most people no longer believe in it, Alpheus can't deny what he's heard. The idea that such a power could exist again, manifesting in Karthus's granddaughter, shakes him to his core. Alpheus warns Karthus that if word of this gets out, both the imperial family and the temple will try to claim Thiel for themselves. They'll see her as the incarnation of the legend, a force that could disrupt the entire balance of power in the Empire. Karthus, however, calmly assures Alpheus that no one will take Thiel away from them, as neither the imperial family nor the temple will dare to act against the Asterian family. Alpheus acknowledges this, but admits there's something else troubling him. He reminds Karthus of a hidden legend within their leopard tribe, one known only to the heads of the Nesan and Asterian families and their destined successors. According to the tale, alongside the Child of Light, the Asterian and Nesan families would regain their true powers, ushering in an era of glory with the light. Pacing, Alpheus mentions that if the child truly has the power of light, she might even lift the Asterian curse. However, Karthus immediately retorts, declaring that Thiel is his youngest daughter, a child he has only just found again. He has no intention of burdening her with such weighty matters. Alpheus agrees, conceding that Thiel's well-being is what's most important right now. A week later, Karthus sits with Thiel, asking if there's anything she lacks or finds inconvenient. She shyly responds that there's nothing. Karthus suggests she sit in the middle of the sofa, but Thiel insists she's fine. Undeterred, Karthus picks her up gently and sets her in the middle of the sofa, asking her how it feels now. Beaming, Thiel replies that it's comfortable. Karthus watches her quietly, realizing how easily her guard lowers with just a small gesture of kindness. The thought strikes him, he could have made her happy with such small things all along. Yet those moments were stolen from her when she was taken away from him. So many years of her life, which should have been filled with happiness. He sets his teacup on the table and questions Thiel if she remembers the day she arrived and used the light power in the basement. Thiel admits she vaguely recalls it. Karthus tells her that the power she used is her own. Thiel is shocked, unable to comprehend. Her power? How could it be hers? Karthus explains that her ability is a special one, a gift that brings morning to dark lands and drives away the world's darkness. He reveals to her that she is the most precious being in the Empire. Thiel stares at him in disbelief. It doesn't feel real to her. Just days ago, she was nothing more than a useless half-breed, someone who couldn't even use basic powers. She struggles to believe she has something as extraordinary as a special ability. Yet she knows Karthus wouldn't lie to her. With hesitant tone, she calls out to him, asking if she can truly be of help to the Asterian family. Karthus is startled by her words, setting his teacup down on the table. He firmly tells her that she doesn't need to help the family. Even without doing anything, she is his daughter and a rightful member of the Asterian family. Hearing him call her his daughter makes Thiel burst into tears. She retorts that her grandfather always said a child of the family must contribute to it. Heartless responds firmly, saying that if a family relies on a child's help, it's better for that family to disappear altogether. Sitting beside her, he softens and reassures her. A young child like her shouldn't worry about such things. She should do whatever she wants to do. I'm 20 and still want to do whatever I want. Am I cooked, or am I just the appetizer refusing to get on the adulting buffet?